Good day, everyone. Welcome to Simple Codes with Aziz. In this tutorial, I'll be giving us introduction to PHP. PHP simply stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. It is a backend language that you can use for scripting your backend logic, and it is one of the most widely used server-side scripting language. And I don't want to give us much background theory. So let's just dive into writing PHP. And I'm very sure that at the end of this video, you'll be able to have basic understanding of what PHP actually means. So, and at the end of this tutorial series, you'll be able to write PHP codes efficiently and effortlessly. So now let's get started. The first thing that you need to do is to download a local server to your PC. So in this case, I'll be recommending either WAMP or XAMPP server. So let's just go to Google and download XAMPP server. XAMPP server. So it is spelled as XAMPP. So just go to their website. It's free. So you don't have to pay any money to download it. So just click on download here. In my own case, I already have it installed. So this XAMPP, when you download it, XAMPP always come with some other packages like PHP. It comes with Apache, it comes with Perl, and it comes with MariaDB. So now, whenever you want to start writing PHP, the only thing you need to download is to download XAMPP, and XAMPP will contain the PHP of the latest version. And currently now we have PHP 8. So I've already installed XAMPP. So now let's get started. So now the first thing I'll come to do is that I'll open my XAMPP control panel. So inside my XAMPP control panel, I can see different modules for me to start. So I have Apache, I have MySQL, I have FileZilla, I have Mercury, and I have Tomcat. So now, for the sake of this tutorial, I'll be interested in opening Apache and starting the MySQL server. So I'll just click on under action, I'll click on start, then I'll start the MySQL server too. So these two servers are now up and running. What I'll need to do next is that I'll need to familiarize you with the folder that you will need to actually install your PHP application. So now we need to navigate inside our file manager. So click on this PC, then local disk. So now, whenever you install the XAMPP the XAMPP server, so it is going to generate a folder for you inside your local disk C. So now you just click on it. The next thing is that if you downloaded XAMPP server, there's a folder called htdocs. So this is where you will be. This is the directory for your PHP applications. But if you are working with WAMP server, you are going to be saving your programs inside the www folder. So in our own case here, we are going to create a file inside the htdocs folder. So I'm going to be creating a new file, or probably let me just go and do that inside my text editor. So in this case, I'll be using Visual Studio Code to write my codes. So I'll come here, then I'll just say I want to create a new file. So inside this new file, I'm going to navigate to my XAMPP folder. So inside this XAMPP folder, the htdocs, so and I'm going to be naming this class .php. So now we have this class.php. So that is the first thing for us to do. So now, as I have entered the name of this application, that I'm about to create. So you can see that I added the extension .php to it, because whenever you are writing PHP codes, you have to add the .php extension. Just like when you're writing HTML, use .htm or .html. When you're writing CSS, you use .css. So HTML, so PHP also have an extension too. So now there's a particular syntax in which PHP usually follow. Whenever you want to declare PHP, so this is how you do it. So you just use the less than with this PHP, then you close. So this is the opening and the closing tag of PHP. This is how you open and you close the PHP tag. So anything that is going to be between this open and closing tag, this will be your logics. This is where you store your logics. Then if you want to add normal HTML pages, let's say in our case HTML5, so all the other ones can come below it. And also PHP also allows you to embed uh HTML and PHP, they work hand in hand sometimes. So you can embed PHP inside your HTML code. So as we go ahead in our tutorial series in this video, then we'll be able to see how to achieve that. So now, the first thing that I'll be talking about here is the data type in PHP. So before I move to data type, I'll be talking about what is a variable. A variable is like a container where you actually store values. You store the name, like you store the results of computation, you store string, you store anything that you want to use inside your program. You can store them inside a variable. So now that will now lead me to what is called a data type. A data type is as the name implies, it's represent the various kind of data that you can store inside your variable. So in programming, we have the integer, we have the integer, we have string, integer, we have string, we have floats, we have double. I'm just specifying the general data type that we have. So we have double, we have boolean, we have boolean, we have array, and so on and so forth. We have lots of data type that we can actually work in when we are writing programs. But in the case of PHP here, you don't have to explicitly specify the data type that you actually want to work in, unlike some programming language like C, C++, Java, that you need to specify that, okay, this variable that I'm trying to create is an integer, is a string. So in the case of languages like PHP, we don't need that. So now, how do we now create our variable? We can just say $sign. You start your variable with $sign, then you say $sign number. Let's say number is equals to 5. So now the PHP interpreter will automatically get that, okay, this variable that the programmer is trying to create here is an integer. So it does that behind the scene. So now this same number variable, we can store a string inside. We can say this is now a string. So we can have another variable called boo. So we can set that to true, which is a Boolean data type. So what I'm just trying to achieve here is that when we are dealing with PHP, You don't have to explicitly specify the data type that you are actually working with. So now, let's now talk about the input and the output, the way you get data from the user and the way you display display output to the user in PHP, because that is very, very essential. So now the first thing is that let's start by printing out stuffs to the user. So now let me rename this variable to str. So now if we want to actually print out to the screen, we use the echo. We use the echo function, the echo. So now we can just specify the variable that we want to display, str. So now once I save this, then I will now go inside my browser. So my browser, let me come back here. And inside my browser, then how do we now run our program? We just have to type localhost slash class.php. So once I do this, you can see that it is now displaying the value to us. This is now a string. It has printed it out on my screen. So now, if we actually want to now embed that particular variable inside an HTML, so we can just create an h1 element. Then, as we already know that for us to start using PHP, we need to open the PHP tag, then close the PHP tag, then all our logic will be inside. So now what do I want to do? I want to echo out $str. Then I'm terminating it. Let me save, then come back here. You can now see we have actually embedded our PHP code inside HTML. So this works very, very well and it works fine. So now we can also, let's say we have this number now. Let's say we want to make arithmetic operation. So this number, let me create another variable called number two. Number two. Let's say that one is like 10. Then now, and I want to print the sum of number and number two. I could just say number then plus $ number two. So once I save it, then come back here to refresh, we can actually see that it has performed the computation. That is how to add in PHP. If it's in terms of subtraction too, we can just use subtraction, then reload the page. We can see it's bringing out -5. Let's check the reason why. So we are saying that 5 minus 10, which is automatically -5. So PHP is right here. So now let's say we now want to actually add two strings together. Let's say we have another string called str2. So what will be the value here? Let's just say this is a second string. If we say we should actually add it together, if we add the two strings together, let's see what it's going to give us. $str plus $str2. So if I reload, yes, you can see that it's giving me an error, unsupported operand type, string plus string, because that is not actually how you add two strings together. This is a term that is called concatenation. Concatenation is when you want to actually join a particular string with another string. So now, how do we concatenate? In PHP, we use the dot notation to concatenate. We use the dot notation to concatenate. So I'll just put dot. So let me save and refresh. Let me save and refresh. We can see now that it has actually joined this string together, but it is not looking nice. So now what I can actually do here is that I will want to expand this string by adding some other things to it. So let's say I'm concatenating another string. Let's say I want this to be between it. So now I have string 1. I concatenated this to it. Then to this, I'm concatenating str2. So this is very simple. Once I come back here, you can see this is now a string. Then this particular one that I concatenated to it, I added it manually. It is not a variable. Then this is the second variable called the str2, which I have joined to it. So these are actually ways that you can print stuffs on the screen using PHP. So now let's now talk about how you are going to actually collect data from the user in PHP. So now what we will do here in this case is that number one, we can make use of, because this data that we have here, this variable contain data. These are data that we actually generated. We had coded the data inside PHP. But now, how do we now give the user of our program the access to create programs, like to create data by themselves, so that PHP will now process their data and give out output to the user immediately? So we can make use of HTML forms. So we are not new to HTML form. So it's very simple. So what I'll just need here is to create the form tag in HTML. The action is very, very important. Action is called like action. In this action parameter, we specify the particular URL that is going to receive our data. So that is the function of URL. So now, in our own case, we want to submit our data to the class.php file. So I'll just come back here. I'll just come here and type class.php. There is another parameter that we need to add. So that will be the method. The request that we are making, is it we have two types of requests that we can actually work with. We have the get request and we have the post request. So let me just quickly explain what we meant by get requests and post requests. Both of them will actually submit data to the PHP. But get request, it's always the data that you have sent, it will still display it at the address bar, while the post request will send it directly and it will not display the data that you sent in the address bar. So that is just a simple difference that you can actually notice between the get request and the post request. There are some actual in some actual places it will get to some point that you prefer to use post request, especially when you are sending uploads. So In those cases, post request is essential because it will not upload unless you switch. If you are using get, unless you switch to a post request. So now don't let me just bombard you with theories. So for the sake of this session, so we'll be making use of both get and post request so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. So now for at first, let's just use a get request. So then inside this form, let's say I want to make a label. Let me write it in a small letter. I want to make a label. Then I call this first name. Then I break it. Then I want to create an input tag, type text. Then the name is very, very important. The name is very important because the name is what the PHP interpreter will actually use to process your data. So ensure that you take note of the name that you are using and the name does not actually clash with other names. Make the name that you'll be using, make it a unique identifier. So now let me just use F name to save it. Then I'm breaking it. Then I'm creating another label, last name. So last name, then break, input type text, then name. I'm saving it as L name. Then once I'm done, then I want to submit. I want to create a submit button, input type submit. So I'm going to be putting the name to be submit. Then the value, I want the value also to be submit. So now let me now go back to my program here. Then let's see what is happening. We have first name, we have last name, and we have the submit button right here. So now let me just comment this out. Let me clear this so that it will be clean. So we have this now. The main aim of this program is that we want the user to actually fill their form. Then once they click on submit, I want to display that okay, you are welcome to the class. Then it will actually concatenate first name and the last name. So now how do we achieve this? Let me clear this out. How do we achieve this? There is a particular helper method called isSet. This is let me just type it first. If isSet dollar underscore get f name and isSet dollar underscore get L name. What this is actually saying is that if isSet dollar underscore get f name, it's telling us that if we have value for f name and we have value for L name, so that is just the basic meaning of this statement. So the if statement is used to cross check things. It is used to verify a condition. That is why I am actually using the if statement to check if we have the f name and we have the L name. So now, if we have that, I'm going to be storing my f name inside the f name variable. So now, any data that we pass via get request to get the value of that data, we'll say dollar underscore get then the name of that input field. So which is f name in our own case, f name here, f name here. So now you can see that it's the same thing that I've done here. This is set. It means that if we have value for it, so then $_get L name, the value of this. So the second one too now, let's say L name is equals to $_get L name. So these are the two variables that we have. If we have more variables, we can actually continue with the other parameter. Let's say we have another variable called age, we have sex, other things that we can actually do while filling a form. But in this case, we are limited to two variables as we only have two input fields here. So now, what do I now want to do with these variables that this user is creating? What do I want to do with it? I'll just type. Let's say I just want to echo. I'll just say echo you are welcome to the class. I need to concatenate, right? I'll just concatenate $f name. Then I'll put a space between the name like this. Then another concatenation, then $L name. So let's just see how this is going to work. Let's see how the output is going to be. So if I refresh my page, we can see nothing is happening. So if I just type first name, let me type my name Aziz. My last name is Adebimpe. So then if I submit, you can see now it's saying you are welcome to the class Aziz Adebimpe. So now what I was actually telling you about the get request is that the values that you have submitted will be displayed in the address bar. You can see the values are actually displayed on the address bar. Name Aziz, L name this, submit is equals to submit. The reason why this submit is equal to submit is that I set the value of submit to submit. You can see right here. So now let's now try doing a post request. The only thing that will change is that, okay, this method, I'm going to be changing it to post. Then all this underscore get will turn to underscore post. So, and that's all. So now let's come back here. You'll see that it's going to throw us an error. Okay, we don't have an error yet. So I'm coming back here now. So now let me fill the form again as is. Then my last name. Then I submit. You can see it is giving us the same output that we want, but we cannot actually see the data that we have submitted. In terms of security, post request is more secure than get request because let's say for instance now we just want to log in into our account. So let's say we just input our username and the password. So now if we use a get request in such cases, the get request is actually going to display our username and our password in the address bar. Anybody can have access to it. But now, when we are using a post request, all our details will be hidden. So we can actually abstract some of our data. So now we'll be concluding the introduction to PHP tutorial. So in subsequent classes, we'll be touching more complex topics. Then make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel I hope you have actually learnt